No one in the crowded Riverside Galleria Mall, Atlanta, noticed the moment Danger walked in. Music hummed softly from the ceiling speakers. Children laughed near the toy store. Couples argued quietly over food court menus. To everyone else, it was just another ordinary afternoon in America. But for Naomi Carter, it was a moment her past refused to stay buried. Naomi stood near the glass railing on the second floor, scrolling through her phone, one hand resting protectively on the strap of her purse. She was dressed simply. Black jeans, a cream sweater, natural curls pulled back neatly. Nothing about her screamed attention, yet everything about her screamed growth. She hadn't always looked like this. There was a time when Naomi flinched at loud voices, a time when her shoulders were permanently tense, a time when she checked exits before sitting down anywhere. That time had a name, Marcus Carter. She didn't see him at first. She felt him, that familiar tightening in her chest, the instinctive dread she had spent years unlearning, the sudden awareness that the air around her had changed. Then a voice cut through the noise. "Wow, look at you." Naomi froze. Her fingers tightened around her phone. Slowly, too slowly, she turned. Marcus stood a few feet away, blocking the walkway. Same sharp jaw, same predatory smile, same eyes that never looked at her, only through her. He was dressed casually, but arrogance clung to him like cologne. His gaze swept over her, not with admiration, but with ownership. "I almost didn't recognize you," he continued. "Guess leaving me really did you some good." Naomi swallowed. Her heartbeat thundered in her ears. "Move," she said quietly. Marcus laughed. Loud, purposeful. Head began to turn. "Still got that attitude," he said, stepping closer. "You think you're too good to talk to me now?" She took a step back. He took two forward. "You embarrass me," Marcus hissed, his voice dropping. "You ran. You changed your number. You thought you could just disappear." "I divorced you," Naomi replied, her voice steady but her hands shaking. "Legally. You don't own me." That word, own, did something to him. Marcus's smile vanished. "You always did like pretending you had power," he said. "Let me remind you who you are." Before Naomi could react, his hand shot out. Fingers wrapped around her throat. Hard. Gasps rippled through the mall. Naomi's phone fell, clattering against the tile. Her hands flew up instinctively, nails scraping uselessly against his wrist as pressure closed around her neck. "Marcus, stop," she choked. His grip tightened. "Say it," he growled. "Say you need me." People froze. Some shouted. No one moved fast enough. That's when everything changed. A few steps away stood a man who hadn't raised his voice, hadn't rushed, hadn't panicked. He had been there the entire time. Daniel Calm, tall, broad-shouldered, dressed in a tailored dark coat that hid the muscle beneath. His face was calm, almost disturbingly so. Black hair neatly styled. Eyes sharp, unreadable, locked on Marcus with surgical focus. Daniel didn't run. He walked, slowly, purposefully. The sound of his shoes against the tile cut through the chaos. Marcus felt it before he saw him. "What the hell are you looking at?" Marcus snapped, turning his head just enough. That was his mistake. Daniel reached his side, and calmly, almost gently, removed the rings from his fingers. 1, 2, 3. Each metallic click against his palm sounded louder than the screams around them. The mall went silent. Marcus scoffed. "You got a death wish, man." Daniel didn't answer. He stepped closer, so close Marcus could feel him. Then Daniel spoke, softly. "Take your hand off my wife." Marcus laughed. Then Daniel moved. The grip on Naomi's throat disappeared instantly as Marcus was yanked backward, slammed into the railing with bone-shaking force. A single, Precise strike dropped him to his knees. Daniel leaned down. Not angry. Not rushed. "You touched something that doesn't belong to you," he said. "That's the last mistake you'll ever make." Security finally rushed in. People screamed. Phones recorded. Naomi stood frozen, gasping for air, tears streaming down her face. Daniel turned back to her immediately. "Hands gentle now. Breathe," he said softly. "I've got you." She nodded, collapsing into his arms. What Marcus didn't know, what no one in that mall truly understood, was that the man he just challenged wasn't just Naomi's husband. Daniel Kong was a name spoken in whispers across the East Coast. And by putting his hands on Naomi, Marcus Carter had just signed his own downfall. The Riverside Galleria Mall didn't go back to normal after that. Not right away. Not after a man grabbed a woman in public. And another man, cold as winter, walked up, removed his rings like a ritual, and ended the moment without raising his voice. Security swarmed the balcony level. Shoppers scattered in waves. Phones stayed lifted, recording, zooming in, chasing angles like the truth was a prize to be claimed. Naomi Carter stood with her back against a storefront gate, chest heaving, throat burning. The world looked too bright, too loud, like her senses had been turned up to punish her. Daniel Kong stood between her and everyone else. Security, strangers, Marcus, like a wall built from quiet control. "Ma'am, are you okay?" a security officer asked, eyes bouncing between Naomi and Marcus. Naomi tried to speak. Only air came out. Daniel answered for her. "She needs space." Marcus, still on his knees, coughed and laughed at the same time. It was the laugh of a man who couldn't stand losing. A man who used public scenes like weapons. "You hear this." Marcus barked, pointing at Daniel. "She got herself a bodyguard now. Thought you were so strong, Naomi. Thought you didn't need nobody." Naomi finally found her voice, small but present. "I don't need you." Marcus's eyes sharpened. "You sure?" Daniel's gaze didn't move. "Walk away." Marcus pushed up to his feet with a grimace, wiping his mouth like he'd just been disrespected by the universe. He looked around at the cameras, at the people watching, at the security guards, and he smiled. That smile told Naomi the nightmare wasn't over. It told her Marcus didn't care about embarrassment. He cared about control. "Fine," he said, holding both hands up. "I'm leaving." He backed away, still smiling, then leaned toward Naomi as if to whisper something only she could hear. But he made sure everyone heard. "This ain't over. You can marry whoever you want," Marcus said, "but you'll always be mine." Daniel stepped forward like a shadow moving across a light. Marcus immediately backed up another step, the smile flickering. Security guided Marcus toward the escalator, but he kept twisting his head back to look at Naomi, his expression changing from amusement to promise. Naomi's hands shook harder now. The old fear, her old body memory, rushed back like a flood that didn't ask permission. Daniel turned to her, lowering his voice. "Look at me." Naomi's eyes found his. His calm didn't erase what happened, but it gave it a border, a frame, a place to put the chaos. "You're safe," he said. "Right now." Naomi nodded, but her throat tightened again. "He'll come back," she whispered. He always comes back." Daniel's jaw flexed once. It wasn't anger. It was calculation. "He won't touch you again," he said, like it was a decision already made. Naomi swallowed. "Daniel, what are you going to do?" For the first time, Daniel didn't answer immediately. Instead, he reached into his coat and produced a small pack of tissues, offering it with the same steady hands he used for everything. Naomi took it without thinking, dabbing her eyes. Then Daniel leaned close, not romantic, not soft, just private. "Go to the car," he said. "Driver's waiting." Naomi's head snapped up. "No, I'm not leaving you here." Daniel's gaze stayed on the escalator Marcus had disappeared down. "Naomi, you trust me?" She hesitated, only because that word had been used against her in the past. Then she nodded. "Yes." "Then go," Daniel said, "and don't look back." Naomi wanted to argue, wanted to cling to him, like safety was something you could hold with your hands. But Daniel wasn't asking. He was placing her out of the line of fire. So Naomi walked. Each step toward the elevator felt like stepping away from the only solid ground she had. She kept her head high, because she refused to be a spectacle. But inside, she was shaking. She made it to the parking level, where a black SUV waited like it belonged to the night more than the day. The driver, an older man in a suit, opened the door without a word. His eyes were respectful, alert. "Mrs. Kong," he greeted. Naomi stiffened. "How do you know?" "Please," he said gently. "Get in. Mr. Kong asked me to keep you safe." Naomi slid into the back seat. The leather was cold. The air smelled clean, like money and quiet. The driver closed the door and stood outside, scanning the garage. Naomi looked through the tinted glass. That's when she saw something that turned her blood cold. 2 cars down, a man stood near a pillar pretending to scroll on his phone. But he wasn't scrolling. He was watching the SUV. Watching her. Naomi's breath caught. "Driver," she whispered, tapping the glass. The driver turned. Naomi nodded subtly toward the pillar. The driver didn't look immediately. He didn't react like a normal person. He simply moved, smooth, controlled, to the front seat, started the engine, and pulled out as if nothing had happened. Only after they cleared the garage did he speak into a small earpiece Naomi hadn't noticed before. "Tail in the garage," he said calmly. "Possible contact." Naomi's mouth went dry. This wasn't normal. This wasn't just, "My husband is protective." This was infrastructure, a system, a world with rules she didn't fully understand. Naomi squeezed her hands together. "Is someone following us?" The driver checked the rear mirror. "Not anymore." Naomi stared out at the Atlanta skyline as they merged into traffic. For years, she had dreamed of being free from Marcus. She had never imagined freedom would come with shadows. Daniel Kong stood in the mall security office with a calm that made everyone else uncomfortable. The mall manager offered him water. Daniel didn't touch it. A police officer asked for a statement. Daniel answered in short, clean sentences. Yes, he intervened. Yes, he used force to stop an assault. No, he didn't escalate. Everything he said was true, but the officer's eyes kept narrowing, like he sensed there was more. Daniel's phone buzzed once. A single message. Marcus Carter. History. DV reports. Restraining order violations. 2 open warrants out of Cobb County. Current location. Unknown. Associates. Small crew. Daniel read it once and slipped the phone back into his pocket, like a priest closing a book. Then another buzz. Tail spotted in garage. We lost him. Daniel's gaze darkened, not with anger, but with something colder. He looked at the officer. Am I free to leave? The officer hesitated. Sir, what you do for work? Daniel's eyes lifted slowly. It was the kind of look that made men rethink questions. I manage investments, Daniel said. He walked out before anyone could ask more. Outside the mall, Daniel stepped into the sunlight and dialed a number no one saved under a real name. It rang once. A voice answered. Yes, boss. Daniel's voice stayed low. Find Marcus Carter. A pause. Then, we can bring him in. Daniel stopped walking. Not yet, he said. The pause on the line sharpened. Not yet. Daniel's eyes scanned the busy street, as if he could already see where the future was standing. I want to know who he's talking to, Daniel continued. I want to know who thinks he's brave enough to trail my wife. Yes, boss. Daniel ended the call. He didn't move for a moment, because deep down, Daniel already knew a truth Naomi hadn't learned yet. Marcus didn't show up at that mall by accident. People like Marcus didn't bump into their victims. They planned. They hunted. And they always had someone feeding them information. Daniel's phone buzzed again. A third message, shorter, heavier. Marcus called someone right after the mall. One word came through before the line encrypted. Payday. Daniel's expression didn't change, but the air around him did. He slipped his rings back on, one by one, like reloading a promise. Naomi sat in silence until they reached a quiet gated neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. Tree-lined streets, security cameras, clean sidewalks. The kind of place you chose when you were tired of surviving. When they entered the property, the gate closed behind them with a heavy finality. Naomi exhaled shakily. Inside the house, everything was calm. Soft lighting, warm wood floors, expensive art that didn't scream for attention. But Naomi couldn't relax. She walked into the kitchen, poured water, then stared at her hands. They were still shaking. Her throat still felt raw. And in that rawness came the memories she hated most. Marcus wasn't just a man she left. Marcus was a chapter that kept trying to rewrite the ending. Her phone buzzed. Unknown number. Naomi froze. She didn't answer. Another buzz. A text appeared. You think he can protect you? You'll see. Naomi's fingers went numb. She backed away from the counter like the phone was a snake. Then another text. Meet me tonight. Alone, or the video goes public. Naomi's stomach dropped. Video? She stared at the message, trying to breathe. Then her phone buzzed again, this time from Daniel. I'm on my way. Don't open the door for anyone, not even if they know your name. Naomi's eyes filled with tears. She typed fast. Marcus texted me. He says he has a video. 3 dots appeared. Then Daniel replied with a single line that made Naomi's blood run cold. I know. Naomi's mouth opened slightly, because suddenly it hit her. Daniel didn't look surprised at them all. He looked prepared, like he'd been waiting for Marcus to show himself, like he already knew the storm was coming. Naomi stared at the screen, then at the quiet house, then at the lock gate outside. And for the first time since marrying Daniel Kahn, Naomi asked herself a terrifying question. What kind of man did I really marry? Marcus didn't just want revenge. He had leverage, and someone was helping him. And Daniel Kahn wasn't calling the police. He was calling something else. Something older, darker, stronger. The house was silent, but Naomi Carter felt like it was watching her. Every camera on the property blinked softly in the darkness. Every lock whispered reassurance. She wasn't sure she believed yet. The gated neighborhood outside looked peaceful, almost unreal, like a postcard version of safety. But Naomi knew better now. Safety wasn't a place. It was a person. And tonight, that person hadn't come home yet. Naomi sat on the edge of the couch, phone clutched in her hand, staring at Marcus's last message like it might suddenly explain itself. Meet me tonight. Alone, or the video goes public. Her throat tightened again. She didn't know what video he meant, but Marcus never bluffed without something in his hand. That was how he'd always controlled her, not with strength, with exposure, with humiliation, with fear of being seen. The front door finally opened. Naomi stood instantly. Daniel stepped inside, closing the door behind him with quiet precision. He removed his coat, hung it carefully, then turned toward her. One look at her face, and his jaw tightened. He contacted you. He said, not a question. Naomi nodded. He says he has a video. Daniel walked closer, slow and grounded, until he stood in front of her. He didn't touch her yet. What kind of video? He asked. Naomi swallowed. I don't know. He didn't say. Just that he'd release it if I didn't meet him. Alone. Silence stretched between them. Then Daniel did something unexpected. He exhaled. Not frustration. Not anger. Acceptance. Sit, he said gently. Naomi sat. Daniel pulled a chair across from her and sat too, forearms resting on his knees. For the first time since she'd known him, his calm felt heavy. There are things about your past, he said carefully, that Marcus knows you never told me. Naomi's heart stuttered. I told you everything. Daniel nodded once. You told me what you were ready to tell. Naomi's fingers curled into the couch cushion. What does that mean? Daniel reached into his jacket and pulled out a slim black folder. He placed it on the table between them. Naomi stared at it like it might bite. What is that? She whispered. Daniel didn't answer right away. He opened the folder, turned it around, and slid it toward her. Naomi looked down. Her name stared back at her. Naomi Carter, formerly Naomi Walker. Case summary, confidential. Her breath caught. This isn't possible, she said, shaking her head. Those records were sealed. Daniel's eyes didn't leave her face. They were... Naomi's chest felt too tight. Then how do you... I didn't open this until after the mall, Daniel said. I promised myself I wouldn't, but Marcus forced my hand. Naomi flipped the page. Dates, addresses, police reports, hospital visits she never admitted were connected, photographs she didn't remember being taken. Her hands began to tremble. Why do you have this? She asked, her voice breaking. Why would you ever need this? Daniel leaned forward slightly. Because when I met you, I knew you were running from something. And in my world, running people get found. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but of something sharper. Betrayal. You investigated me? She said. Daniel nodded. I had to know what could reach you. Naomi stood abruptly, backing away. You had no right. You're right, Daniel said calmly. I didn't. She laughed bitterly. So you married me with a file in your drawer? Daniel stood too, closing the distance without raising his voice. I married you because you survived something that would have broken most people. I kept the file because Marcus Carter doesn't let go. Naomi pressed her hands to her temples. Then you already know. Daniel's voice softened. I know there was an incident. She shook her head violently. No, not an incident. She met his eyes. A trap. Daniel stayed silent. He recorded me. Naomi continued, words spilling now. Not intimate. Not like that. He pushed me, screamed at me, locked me in the bathroom and filmed me crying, begging, breaking down. Then he used it. Daniel's jaw clenched. He told me if I ever left, he'd post it. Said everyone would see what a crazy black woman looked like when she lost control. Her voice cracked. So I stayed, longer than I should have. The room felt colder. Daniel said nothing. Naomi wiped her face angrily. That's the video. That's what he's threatening. Daniel nodded once. I know. Naomi froze. What do you mean, you know? Daniel reached into the folder again and pulled out a still image, a frozen frame from a video. Naomi younger, on a bathroom floor, eyes red, hands shaking. Her breath stopped. He already sent it to someone. Daniel said quietly, Tonight. Naomi staggered back like she'd been hit. Who? Daniel didn't answer immediately. Then he said, A blogger. The word felt heavier than a gun. A what? Naomi whispered. Someone who profits from exposing people. Daniel continued. They specialize in humiliation, viral breakdowns, truth content. Naomi's knees nearly gave out. Then it's over. Once it's out. Daniel stepped forward and caught her before she fell. No, he said firmly. It's not. Naomi clutched his shirt. You don't understand. Once people see. Daniel lifted her chin gently, forcing her to meet his eyes. I understand exactly, he said, which is why Marcus doesn't know how badly he miscalculated. Naomi searched his face. What are you saying? Daniel released her slowly and turned away, pulling out his phone. He didn't dial. He opened a secure channel. Phase 2, he said calmly. Lock the release. Naomi stared. Lock what? Daniel looked at her over his shoulder. The internet. Her breath hitched. That's not possible. Daniel's mouth curved slightly, not in a smile but in certainty. In my world, he said, nothing goes live unless someone allows it. He ended the call. Outside, somewhere beyond the walls of the house, things were already moving. Servers were being isolated. Accounts were being frozen. Money was changing direction. The blogger's page went offline without explanation. Marcus Carter refreshed his phone again and again, panic creeping in. Naomi didn't see any of that yet. She only saw Daniel Kong standing in her living room, like a man who had stepped fully into a role he'd been holding back. You weren't supposed to be part of this, Daniel said quietly. I tried to keep my world separate from yours. Naomi crossed her arms, grounding herself. Your world found me anyway. Daniel nodded. Yes. She took a breath. Then tell me the truth. All of it. Daniel met her gaze. For years, he said, I built a network in this country that doesn't look like what people imagine when they hear the word mafia. No guns on corners. No chaos. Just leverage. Information. Influence. Naomi listened, heart pounding. Marcus thought humiliation was power, Daniel continued. He thought fear made him untouchable. Daniel stepped closer. In my world, fear is sloppy. Naomi's voice was barely audible. What are you going to do to him? Daniel didn't answer the question directly. Instead, he said, tomorrow morning, Marcus Carter will wake up with no job, no allies, and no place to hide. By nightfall, he'll wish a mall security guard had arrested him. Naomi swallowed. And the video? Daniel looked at her steadily. The only place that video will ever exist again, he said, is in a locked archive, marked as evidence of who he really is. Naomi's chest rose and fell rapidly. She wasn't afraid anymore. She was standing at the edge of something final. Daniel reached for her hand, hesitating, giving her the choice. She took it, then ended. Naomi said. Daniel squeezed her hand once. I will, he replied. Outside, the gates hummed softly. And somewhere across the city, Marcus Carter realized the internet had gone silent around his name. That silence was not mercy. It was a countdown. Marcus Carter woke up believing he was still in control. That belief lasted exactly 37 seconds. The first sign came when his phone refused to connect to cellular service. No bars. No data. Just a blank screen where power used to be. He sat up in bed, irritation already rising. His apartment felt smaller than it had the night before, like the walls had leaned in while he slept. He refreshed his phone. Nothing. Come on, he muttered, tossing it onto the mattress and grabbing his laptop. The Wi-Fi connected. Relief flickered, then vanished. Every tab he opened returned the same message. Account suspended. Access denied. Contact administrator. Marcus frowned. He logged into his bank app. Error. Tried another. Error. His pulse began to quicken. He grabbed his jacket and headed for the door, keys jangling louder than usual in his shaking hand. The door didn't open. He stared, unlocked it, pulled again. Still nothing. A folded envelope slid down from the doorframe and landed at his feet. Marcus froze. Slowly, he bent and picked it up. No stamp. No return address. Just his name. Inside was a single sheet of paper. Typed, clean, precise. Marcus Carter, you are not being arrested. You are not being threatened. You are not being negotiated with. Everything you own, touch, or influence has been temporarily paused. This is not punishment. This is preparation. Sit still. Someone will contact you. Marcus's mouth went dry. He backed away from the door, scanning the room like danger might be hiding behind the furniture. Then his phone buzzed. 1 bar. A call. Unknown number. He answered with shaking fingers. Who is this? A calm male voice responded. You asked for payday. Marcus's stomach dropped. Listen, Marcus began, trying to sound tough. If this is about the mall, I can explain. You already did, the voice said, very publicly. Marcus swallowed. I don't know what kind of game you think you're playing. This isn't a game, the voice interrupted gently. It's a correction. The call ended. A knock followed immediately. 3 sharp taps. Marcus's breath came fast. Who is it? Delivery, a voice answered. Marcus hesitated, then opened the door. 2 men stood outside, both dressed in suits that looked expensive without trying to look impressive. No weapons visible. No aggression. Just confidence. One of them spoke. You're coming with us. Marcus laughed nervously. You don't have a warrant. The man nodded. We don't need one. They stepped aside. A black sedan waited at the curb. Marcus looked down the hallway, hoping anyone might appear. No one did. The city had gone quiet around him. Naomi stood by the window of Daniel's house, watching the sunrise paint Atlanta in soft gold. She hadn't slept, but she wasn't tired. For the first time in years, her body felt still. Daniel stood behind her, coffee untouched on the counter. It's happening, he said. Naomi nodded. I know. Her phone buzzed. A notification from a news app she didn't follow. Local investigation opens into coercion, harassment, and digital extortion ring. Her breath caught. Another notification. Source confirms multiple arrests expected. Naomi turned to Daniel. You said you wouldn't humiliate him. Daniel met her gaze. I didn't. She frowned. Then why? Truth isn't humiliation, Daniel said quietly. Control is. He handed her his phone. On the screen was an article draft, still unpublished. No video, no breakdown footage, no images of Naomi. Just facts, dates, reports, patterns. Marcus's name appeared once, buried among others. Small, ordinary, mortal. Naomi's eyes filled with tears, not of fear, but relief. You erased me from it, she whispered. Daniel shook his head. You were never the story. Marcus sat in the back of the sedan, hands clenched so tightly his nails cut into his palms. They drove for 20 minutes, then 30, then stopped. The location wasn't dramatic. No warehouse, no dark alley, just a quiet office building downtown. They escorted him inside, up an elevator, into a conference room with floor-to-ceiling windows. A city spread out below like a reminder of how small one man could be. Daniel Kong stood by the window, hands clasped behind his back. Marcus's mouth opened. You. Daniel turned slowly. Sit, he said. Marcus didn't. Daniel didn't repeat himself. Marcus sat. Daniel took a seat across from him, not looming, not threatening, just present. You filmed her, Daniel said calmly. Marcus scoffed weakly. She was unstable. You exploited pain, Daniel continued. Then you tried to sell it. Marcus leaned forward. You think you're some kind of hero? You can't touch me without consequences. Daniel nodded once. You're right. Marcus smirked. Daniel slid a folder across the table. Marcus opened it. His smirk vanished. Inside were signed statements, digital records, financial transfers, names, people Marcus didn't even remember betraying. You're not being punished for Naomi, Daniel said. You're being removed because you're predictable. Marcus's voice cracked. You can't destroy me. Daniel's gaze was steady. I didn't. He stood. I introduced you to people who will. Daniel walked toward the door. Marcus shouted. You think she'll stay with you after this? After she knows what you are? Daniel paused. Without turning around, he said, She already knows who I am. Then he left. By evening, the arrests were public, not sensational, not viral, clean, legal, unavoidable. Marcus Carter's name appeared in a list no one celebrated, but no one defended either. Naomi watched the report silently. Daniel sat beside her, not touching her, letting the moment belong to her. After a long pause, Naomi spoke. It's over, she said. Daniel nodded. Yes. She turned to him. You didn't save me. Daniel met her eyes. No, I saved myself, Naomi continued. You just made sure no one stopped me. Daniel's mouth curved into the smallest smile. Naomi stood, walking toward the window again. For years, she had imagined closure as something loud. It wasn't. It was quiet, clean, final. She turned back to Daniel. No more files. No more secrets. Daniel nodded immediately. Agreed. She held out her hand. Not as someone being protected, but as an equal. Daniel took it. Outside, the city kept moving. And somewhere in that movement, a man who once believed fear was power learned the truth too late. Power was silence. And silence had chosen